different candidates has already begun.
And for more of that congressional debate on this issue, we go to two members of the House Foreign Affairs Committee. Congresswoman Ileana Ros-Lehtinen of Florida is the ranking Republican, and Congressman Bill Delahunt is the Democrat from Massachusetts. Welcome to you both. So, Congressman Delahunt, what do you think of what Secretary Clinton did today?
I think it was the right move at this particular point in time. One aspect that your setup didn't review was that there now is an express statement by the Department of State that until this issue is resolved, ends with the Arias effort, that the election that will be held in November, I think that's the date, will not be recognized by the United States. In other words, we will join our allies in Latin America, like Brazil, like Chile, and like Mexico, in not accepting the results of that forthcoming election.
Congresswoman Ros-Lehtinen, what about the actual move today in terms of the aid, in terms of the $30 million? Was that too far or not far enough?
I totally disagree with the way that the Obama administration has been mishandling this situation. And I find it interesting that one of the statements that the State Department put out, it says that they recognize the complicated set of actions which led to the June 28th coup. What complicated set of actions? Manuel Zelaya violated the Honduran Constitution, violated the law that was passed by the Honduran Congress, violated the decision unanimous 15-0 by the Honduran Supreme Court, went against every aspect of the rule of law. What's so complicated about that? What do you do with a president who wants to maintain himself into power at all costs, no matter if the legislative branch goes against him, if the judicial branch goes against him? And so the Honduran government took this action. And the United States wants to divorce that complicated set of actions as if they didn't happen. Zelaya was violating the law, violating the Constitution, and I think that it's the wrong-headed approach for the United States to punish the Honduran people and to say that they're not going to recognize a legitimate election that's going to take place in late November. This is a man who won't take no for an answer and to power nonetheless.
So, Congressman Delahunt, explain why you think the United States should be supporting Zelaya, who did act certainly extra-legally, or so the Supreme Court and the Congress in Honduras both said.
Well, Margaret, I find it somewhat amusing that many of my colleagues on the Republican side must have gone to law school in Honduras, because it would appear that they're constitutional scholars. But let me be very clear. The request or the initiative by Zelaya was not to extend his term. The question that was going to be on the ballot was a non-binding referendum for the people of Honduras to decide simply this question: should there be a constituent assembly? That was it, pure and simple. I think we have to understand the context of Honduran politics. It's been a country that has been ruled by an economic elite, and with all due respect to the elections that have been held down there, that economic elite exercises disproportionate influence in that democracy. In the past, and I dare say at times now, it would be fair to describe Honduras as a banana republic.
Oh,
we can't
gosh.
go backward.
What an insult. What an insult. That is,
well, you can,
shame on you, Bill.
Ileana, let me, please, don't say that.
A banana republic. That's just great.
Well,
what an insult.
You know, you don't think that, well, let me ask you this, okay? You would not in the past describe Honduras and other Central American and Latin American countries
absolutely
as
not.
banana
And I think
republics?
that's an insult to the people of Honduras. It's an insult to everyone in Latin America. to label any country as a banana republic.
Let me ask you both a question, and I want to begin with the Congresswoman. This is a small, impoverished Latin American country, yet this issue's generated quite surprising passion on Capitol Hill. Why? Why is Congress so concerned about this tiny country, Congresswoman?
Well, I think that this is about the rule of law. I don't think that this is about economic distribution of wealth, whether it's a large country or a small country, whether it's a poor country or a rich country. This is a country that said very clearly the president has violated the Constitution. You don't have to be a constitutional scholar or a graduate of a Honduran law school to know that the article of the Constitution is quite clear. You can call it a poll, you can call it a survey, you can call it a referendum, you can call it anything you want. But it was a violation of the Honduran Constitution, and I'm not the one that says that. The Supreme Court, by a 15-0 unanimous decision, said this president is violating the law. Now, what are the people of Honduras supposed to do when you have a president who will not adhere to the Constitution?
But let me just interrupt. If you could just tell me, I mean, there are plenty of countries all over the world where dodgy election things happen, and Congress doesn't get all exercised about all of them. Why one?
Well, I think that we should get excited and exercised about all of them. I believe that it's a shame when we have a wrong-headed approach about Syria, for example, and this approach toward Honduras. In Honduras, where they are respecting the Constitution, we break away aid. And yet in Syria, where you have a dictator, we want to say, we want to reestablish diplomatic relations. We want to have an ambassador over there. In Iran, we're thinking about maybe undoing sanctions. It's the wrong-headed approach. We want to protect the rule of law and not have this topsy-turvy foreign policy.
Congressman, what is your view about why this is such a hot issue on the Hill?
Well, I think it's a hot issue because the rule of law is at stake here. And as other democracies in Latin America have unanimously recognized, there was a violation. The Organization of American States condemned this coup. The United Nations has condemned this coup, and we don't want to go back to the era of banana republics. And not to address this issue and to try to divert attention with some arguments that simply do not hold under scrutiny, I think does a disservice to the concept of the rule of law. If it looks like a duck and it walks like a duck, it's a coup. I cannot believe that some would stake out the fact that this president was taken not to a court to answer to charges, but bundled up in his pajamas, brought to a plane, and ferreted out of the country. What I find particularly interesting is the top Honduran military lawyer acknowledged unequivocally, without reservation, that they broke the law. Let's understand what this is about.
All right, and let me ask you both for a fearless forecast very briefly. Do you think the step announced today will be enough to push these two parties closer to resolving this? And Congresswoman, I'll start with you, just very briefly.
Well, we will have an election in Honduras in late November. It should be legitimate, free, and fair, internationally supervised, and I hope that the United States takes the correct approach in saying that this is a legitimate election, and let's look toward the future and not harp on the wrong actions of Zelaya when he was violating the Constitution. We've got legitimate elections. Let's recognize them.
Congressman, do you think that's what's in the cards, that they'll run out the clock here?
Well, I hope. There was a report today that there are informal conversations going on between the Zelaya camp and those surrounding Micheletti. Let's hope that they result in some sort of conclusion. But let's remember, you know, former President Arias, a Nobel Prize winner, has an accord that is out there that was accepted by President Zelaya and rejected by Mr. Micheletti. I think that says it all. We know that he's trying to run out the clock. This was a good move today to ratchet up the pressure and the sanctions to resolve this issue without violence.
All right, and we've run out the clock here. Congressman Delahunt and Congresswoman Ros-Lehtinen, thank you both.